This is Rukadowski of WeAreChange.org here in Hong Kong after a very long 16-hour non-stop flight. And depending who you ask, we definitely landed here at the right time or at the very wrong time, as there's many news reports right now of military helicopters, boats, and vehicles moving into, of course, Hong Kong after 3 months of protests here. And joining me on this crazy, wild adventure is no one other than Emily Molly of Subverse. You've probably seen her on this YouTube channel many times, as of course we've been in France covering the yellow vests. And some people have, said that this is a very similar situation. But what do you make of the latest developments? Because even we're hearing news reports that Hong Kong is on ease after these latest reports of protests being banned because of Molotov cocktails, and the new videos and new photos coming in of the helicopters, boats, and armed vehicles that just entered here. It definitely a little bit uneasy.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really knows what to expect at this point. We've seen coming in, obviously, a lot of support for the protests still. When we were coming in from the airport, we were talking to our taxi driver, and he was talking about how basically mostly young people especially, they're pretty committed to this, and it's all about, it's kind of over a range of topics now, but he was talking about the income inequality and how difficult it is for young people to actually live in the city. And it just seems like they're really trying to hold on to the one country, two systems side of the deal that they have here. But they sort of feel like everything is kind of Beijing and the Chinese government in general is just slowly creeping in on their rights. So it's understandable why they would still be protesting and they would still be angry. But it also sounds like, the police are actually getting in, infiltrating some of the protests and causing a lot of the trouble.
Yeah, that's another thing we've been hearing here is, of course, that there's been infiltrators, agent kind of provocateurs, police officers dressing up as protesters. Again, we haven't been able to verify this. This is just, again, us just landing here in Hong Kong. We're literally just here now, just a moments ago. So this is going to be a very important fact-finding mission, finding out all the details, all the information, which, of course, was provided and allowed me to be here because of your independent support, because of you guys supporting me on GoFundMe. And there's a lot of things to really find out here, because we've been hearing a lot of conflicting things, specifically on kind of Western media that has been kind of pushing this and kind of promoting this larger idea. A lot of people kind of simplify this and very generalize it and try to say that this is all over just an extradition bill, and in reality this has been brewing for a very long time. I remember a couple years ago being in Hong Kong, this kind of underlying feeling has been brewing for quite a bit, and it's far more sophisticated than just an extradition bill. A lot of people here talk about the costs of living, the prices of everything going up, especially with the particular real estate situation. I mean, if you look around in Hong Kong, everyone's living on top of each other. We're on the 9th floor, and the spaces here are incredibly crowded. But income inequality is definitely one thing that people are bringing up here. Other people are talking about the Chinese government not keeping their promise, but it's also interesting to see some of the counter information be censored on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as they have made efforts to quail and squash any Chinese government kind of information coming out about this. What have you heard about that, and what are you looking forward to most on this kind of fact-finding mission that we're both on?
Yeah, even in the States, we kind of saw how the Chinese state media has been treating this so far. Even Twitter and Facebook had to shut down coordinated inauthentic behavior campaigns and promoted tweets from state media that are extremely one-sided, calling protesters thugs or even comparing them to ISIS, which is a huge stretch if you actually know what ISIS does. But I think, I'm here to look into a lot of these claims and allegations, and I just am really looking forward to speaking with protesters as well and talking about, I know there are 5 demands, but I'm curious how unified they are, because it seems like out of all of the protests I've seen so far, and I'm excited to cover this one because they seem like the most organized like front of protesters that I've seen in any kind of movement.
Yeah, extreme, like people are calling it high Q level protesting, where like gas canisters are immediately extinguished with people with cones, dropping them, putting water on them, and extinguishing the tear gas that it's thrown on them. There's also accusations about expired tear gas being thrown here. There's accusations against the protesters with the Chinese government comparing them to terrorists, calling them point blank terrorists, bringing in the military. So again, this is going to be a very interesting situation because it's a situation not only playing out on the world stage, but geopolitically, this is big. This does work in the favor of UK-US foreign policy interest, which is why probably we're seeing a lot of the favorable US coverage of this protest, but we're not seeing the same coverage of very similar protests. I would even say more violent protests that are still happening in France with the Yellow Vest movement. But again, people always jump to conclusions, and just because something works in the favor of a U.S. foreign policy directive doesn't always mean that it comes from a very sinister or evil place, since again, this has been brewing for a very long time. But the Chinese media and the Chinese government has been responding, saying that U.S. Government intelligence is involved in this, pushing for this, trying to, of course, make more protests happen here. Again, we're going to be investigating, we're going to be looking at all those kind of accusations, because the only real way to find out the truth is to be here on the ground. And it really has been this kind of high level IQ of protests that has been very organized, very sophisticated, very awestruck. I mean, you see protests and you see how organized a huge mass of people are. It's absolutely stunning. What do you make of these kind of greater geopolitical situation revolving around this? And you know, yeah, that's it.
Well, obviously, the U.S. is no stranger to foreign intervention, but I also think it would be extremely minimizing to say that all of this is the doing of some foreign power or other entity, because it's obvious just from being here, seeing how committed the people are to these protests. You know, obviously, you know, there are a lot of the U.S., the U.K., the West in general does get a lot of benefits out of Hong Kong having this one country, two systems sort of status. But I think it would be extremely minimizing to say that this stems from the black hand of some foreign power like the U.S.
Yeah, and that's an important directive here, because again, when it comes to kind of mass movements, a lot of people nitpick certain facts. They editorialize and they select what kind of viewpoint they want you to understand. That's why we're seeing a lot of kind of conservative right-wingers here, you know, on the internet specifically, saying, look at the graffiti, look at these freedom fighters. Meanwhile, there's graffiti by, you know, leftist protesters somewhere else in the Western world, and they're calling them thugs and monsters while they're congratulating graffiti here. So again, there's a lot of duplicity, there's a lot of bias. I'm doing everything in my power to not be a part of that. Our personal experiences play a role in our reporting, and it's important to understand that. Obviously, I have a slant against any kind of authority, and you guys know that. My personal bias is always understood and always spoken about because it should be spoken about. But one thing that I do that's different is I'm just going to have a live feed going. I'm going to be live on this YouTube channel during the major protests. Specifically, Saturday is the major big one, and you guys will be able to determine yourself what's really happening here on the ground as I discover it, as I talk to individuals, as I talk to different people, and I give you a fair, unedited, unbiased perspective as independent media. So I want to thank again all of you amazing human beings who donated, all the amazing people who are part of this. Expect a lot more coverage here on the ground. We're talking to everyone, just even on the taxi driver. He's like, Hong Kong has changed so much within the last few years. I want to leave here immediately. And again, it's interesting getting so many different people's perspective on this, because it's the only real way to get to the bottom of it. Emily, where can people find out the work you're going to be doing here, and what can people expect from you and your coverage here?
Okay, so I'm going to be posting a video report on the YouTube channel Subverse News. You can follow Subverse on Twitter @OnSubverse. You can also follow me on Twitter @MomesMolly, MOMESMOLLI. I'm also on Minds, and Subverse is on Minds as well, and so we'll probably be putting more content, exclusive stuff up on there as well. So you can go to minds.com/subverse to find that. But yeah, other than that, you know, keep an eye on our YouTubes and our social media. I'll be tweeting throughout protests and just throughout being here, just reporting what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Wish us luck. The links to those specific channels. Okay, I'm not blurry anymore. Will be in the description below. And once again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Thank you for everyone who participated in the GoFundMe. We far surpassed our goal, but I definitely, I only asked for a hotel and a flight. But you guys have far exceeded that, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm looking to hire, of course, a cameraman, an editor. I'm in talks right now as we're sweating here. It's extremely humid, so we're going to be working our little butts off here in Hong Kong, working for the people, and I can't thank you enough for giving me this opportunity. Wish us luck, wish us safe passage here during this crazy, tumultuous time in Hong Kong. Again, appreciate all your donations, appreciate all your support. Without you, I wouldn't be here. That's why. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.